Hello and welcome back to another Tom Talks. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And today we're going to be talking about the new FKA Twigs mixtape, Capri Songs. Yes, this is a mixtape, it's not an album. So, FKA Twigs is an artist who dabbles in many genres, whether that be the very minimalist, hyper pop inspired stuff we got on EPs 1 and 2. LP1, which kind of carried on that trajectory but moved in a more R&B direction. Melissa, which sort of was kind of the end of that, although Twigs pushed us out a bit further. And of course, the last album we got, Mary Magdalene, which felt a lot more mainstream but still felt like a Twigs project. Now, FK Twigs is an artist I've always admired. I think she does take creative risks. Her production is very unique sounding, but I've not always been in love with her stuff. Her initial EPs were pretty cool. There was some good stuff going on there, but I just felt like the minimalist songwriting didn't always work, especially on EP1. EP2 was a definite improvement. LP1, whilst I thought was a good album with songs like 2 Weeks, the track that brought me to attention, it didn't quite fit in my sort of upper tier echelon stuff. Melissa, again, I thought was a very good EP, continued the sound in a very cool direction. But then Mary Magdalene was a good album, but I think she lost a bit of that uniqueness and the tracks didn't all quite hit the nail on the head. Like, I love Cellophane. Like, that's an amazing track. It's emotional, it's powerful. But then we got tracks like Holy Terrain with Future, which had some cool, interesting ideas, but didn't quite do it for me. Here we are in 2022 with Capri Songs. I think it's been 3 years since Mary Magdalene came out, which, time flies, eh? It's a fairly long mixtape, 17 tracks. It does feel like a mixtape, especially like from the get-go with the sort of click of a tape going into a cassette, which I think is a nice touch. It's a good project. I do like this, and whilst it will sound familiar in places, it sounds different in others, and I think it does fit the mixtape vibe well. So the sort of lack of general cohesiveness, which can happen at points with this project, it doesn't feel too bad. We start off with Ride the Dragon, which is a very cool, good opener. It feels like an old school sort of Twigs song, so fans will enjoy that. It's very bare bones, but then the beat kicks in and things start to kick off. It's about her loving a partner, but waiting for him to make sure that he knows how special she is. And that's a big theme of the album, sort of Twigs sort of coming to terms with who she is and trying to make her partner see how special she is, but also sort of talk to herself about it. And the woodwind, the kick drums, the other electronic instruments, it makes this a good track. Honda with Possaloo is a track that at first it didn't really grab me, but then on the third time of listening, because that's how many times I listen to an album, it does get you. I think Possaloo sounds good here, and him and Twigs fit well together, both talking about how special they are and how each other needs to realise that. I think that dynamic works well. The sort of wailing choir vocals and like this Afrobeats inspired production, it works really well, and it grips your attention a bit, and it makes for a solid track, and the piano keys sort of come in at the close and it ends the track off pretty well. Meta Angel it starts off with this like interlude about bigging yourself up again, fitting into those album themes there, and then Twigs starts with this very angelic delivery, which we've come to expect from her, but she still sounds very good. She's a very good singer, as we know. Sort of mixes in with her own background vocals. I like the effect of that there. It's like she feels like she needs help and she can't help herself alone. She needs this sort of meta angel, whether it be a partner maybe or a friend, somebody to sort of help her. A personal and emotional performance, and it concludes with her talking about what she wants and like the voices in her head. It's very sort of personal to her, but it also, elements of it can be talked about with you, with me, you know, we've all been through that sort of thing of self-doubt and sort of realising that we are good and we do need to do something. And the instrumental, it's very wild, it's very abrasive at times, and it does remind me of those EP days. Tears in the Club with The Weeknd was the big single, and I think Abel here does his thing very well. It's almost a perfect team-up, because The Weeknd on his album, which I've done a review for recently on the TomTalks blog, go check it out. He sort of is talking about sort of not feeling like this girl wants him, and even I think he even has a song on the album where he talks about that. I'll have to put in the comments which one, because I forgot. And He's in the club sort of crying over this boy, sort of realising he's not good for her and wanting him, but at the same time she still wants him. I mean, the lyric that perfectly describes this, gotta dance you out of my hips, my thighs, my wrongs, my rights. I think that's a perfect description of sort of going to the club, sort of having a boogie, having a dance, trying to get over that person. And then Abel comes in with his verse basically saying she can't get over him, she needs to be more open to him. And I think that works very well. And it's a great bop. It's the most mainstream track on here, but it works well. Oh My Love starts off with this girl talking about not being taken seriously in a relationship, and it fits the sort of theme of the song. It has this like minimalist trap beat with this guitar, which I quite like. Twigs starts off, it's very quiet, she's talking about not being taken seriously, and then the beat kicks in, and so does Twigs. She then comes in with this very attitude delivery, sort of saying to him that she knows she wants him, isn't messing her about. You get this very juxtaposed, these two aren't really right for each other, from lyrics like, you want to waste the day, I want to spend the night, and when our rhythm be running, I want to make it right. And then sort of at the end, the chorus comes in again, but there's like these background vocals from like other female voices. And I think it worked well, because it's kind of trying to say, this is a personal experience of Twigs, but it happens to other girls as well, to sort of show this isn't an insular track. And I think, yeah, it's a good track. It doesn't blow me away, but I think it serves its purpose on the project. Pamplemousse is very sort of, it's short but sweet, with this like electronic scattered beat. The sort of monotone, distorted delivery fits well. It references like modern love, like talking about Tinder, swiping up and stuff. It's got a bit of hyperpop influence there, and there's this sparse keyboard. It's a short moment, but I think it fits well, and it sort of ends with this guy talking about Twigs doing a track with Dua Lipa, and I'm like, where is that track? I would like to hear that track too, mate. We then get an interlude, which it's got this like old school Twigs production. It feels like a radio intro. She really is taking a bit of influence here from The Weeknd, isn't she? Although this interlude, I don't know, it doesn't really fit for me, but there you go. Light Beamers is the first of a few piano ballads with some 808 kick drums in there, just to give that production a bit of oomph. Emotive, it's very direct. It's Twigs being upset and giving off her emotions, and then pitching them down to highlight the loneliness she feels, the insecurity. But it's a lot more personal to Twigs than I anticipated it to be. He says throughout, do it again. Don't do the same things that are making you sad. Keep trying to overcome that and be you. I think it does that pretty well. And yeah. And the second half, the only bit in this track that's annoying is there's a brief bit where these trap drums kick in. It doesn't quite fit what the instrumental's doing, but I think it's a cool track overall. And get Pappy Bones with Shy Girl. I was happy to see Shy Girl here, and she suits this track to a T. It's got this very ragged, dance hall inspired instrumental. It's talking about dancing with somebody at the club rather than just grinding on them or twerking or dutty whining, whatever floats your boat. Shy Girl, of course, brings her usual sexual energy to this and fits it well. Twigs does as well. She kind of has a bit of a patois bit, and it's okay. But she goes back to that normal sort of angelic delivery we know and love. There is a weird lyric where she says, throw it like a tantrum, which I think is a bit of a... It's a very strange way of describing throwing it back. But overall, I like the track. I think the vibe's cool, and Twig sounds decent over this, which I wouldn't have anticipated her to do a ragga song myself. Which Way with Dystopia, which has got this like pounding 80s keyboard synth in there, and again there's the hyperpop influence as well. It's sort of like a bit of spoken word, a bit of singing. It's very distorted and it's very experimental, and it does remind me a lot of those early days, but it doesn't quite do it for me. I think it's one of those tracks that's very hit and miss. Some people I think will like the low keyness of it. I personally don't, but Then get another ragga inspired cut with Jealousy featuring Remy. The harp used in it reminds me of the Mary Magdalene era a lot. I thought so. It's about sort of like Twigs is like jealous of this boy, and she doesn't trust him, and then the boy played by Rema comes in and sort of says, why are you feeling like this? I've given you the key to my soul. And they both harmonise together very well. Rema gives a very decent performance here. It's not one of like the greatest sort of style of these tracks, like Both Sides of a Smile by Dave, which that's like obviously though like a top tier song, but I think it's done very well here. And again, it's a pretty good track. Another sort of collab harmony type track with Careless with Daniel Caesar. This is a more art poppy sound. Background vocals are mixed in with this sort of subtle 808 instrumental and the piano. Daniel Caesar sounds great, as he always does, and Twig sounds angelic, and they both come together. It fits well. There's enough different going on here compared to the last track, but it's similar themes, so it stops it standing out too much to me. Minds of Men, which is another piano ballad talking about how the man needs her. We've got those haunting choir vocals again, which I know they've been used before, but they still work very well. She's talking about weave my body, bathe in my sea, lay your troubles down and your heavy crown. It's kind of talking about sort of like more male issues and sort of men feeling insecure in themselves, which I think it's a cool idea to do here. But then she says it's like a woman's world at the end, and it's like, I'm all for female empowerment, but I don't know what talking about being in a woman's world has got to do with this guy going through his thing. I think overall the attempt at a good message and sort of being there for men and saying there can't be one or the other, there has to be two of us to come together, I think fits the track well, and it's a pretty good track as well. Twigs, I think, really shines on these sort of more solo moments. She gets to sort of be herself and put herself out there. Trap Girl interlude, which I think fits better a lot more than the last interlude. It's sort of people talking about their different likes and dislikes in men, and then it ends with somebody talking about liking trap boys, which then goes straight into the next track, Darjeeling. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. This has got a very drill instrumental, again with a harp in there though to give it a bit of difference. And it's Twigs talking about how she used to go down to Crystal Palace and meet the trap boys and sort of her feelings towards them and how she deal with the situation and the love and stuff like that. But what I do like is the features. So Twigs herself later on in the track goes on about how she moved from Gloucester to the big city and how she felt alone, but she needed to go there to meet her dreams. And she also does use the "you're not alone," those vocals, and I think it's done in a very good way, and it fits the track because this is kind of talking to people who want to push themselves out there, move from their small town into the big city. So I think that works. Georgia Smith talks about Walsall and how she thought it was bringing her down, but then she moved to the big city and felt alone. And Georgia Smith has these, again, she's got a great voice, which we all know, and the background vocals that are used from her fit well into the instrumental. And Unknown T does his thing as well. I think lyrically this doesn't fit in as much as Twigs and George's verses do, but he's sort of talking about how he grew up, what he experienced, so I think it works well, and it's definitely one of my favourites on here. It's a collaboration I wouldn't have expected to see FKA Twigs do with Unknown T, but then she did that track with Central C recently for the Kingsman soundtrack. So finally, to conclude, we get the Christie interlude, which is this star sign reading. I'm not really a star sign kind of guy, to be honest, but I like the psychedelic production, so that's cool. Get off with Thank You Song, which, I mean, it starts with I wanted to die, I'm just being honest, and I mean, it's a very deep, open and honest track. The piano ballad production is very straight and to the point. It does what it needs to do. Twigs is being very honest, talking about how she feels very low and upset, but this one guy in her life is the one person that's keeping her going, is keeping her fighting. I think it's a great moment here, and it's a great way to close the album. It's a very emotional moment, and it definitely stands out for what this album, what the album mixtape, Tomato Tomato, is trying to do. But yeah, overall, I like this project. I think it does have some good moments here. I think the majority of the guests are used well. I like that Twigs has worked with like Shy Girl, Georgia Smith, Unknown T, Daniel Caesar, Possaloo. Like, there's a great variety of artists here. But I just think the abrasiveness of the tracks and how they aren't as cohesive. I know it's a mixtape, but with FKA Twigs, I feel like there is a clear concept here. I feel like if it was maybe made in a more cohesive manner, I'd like it a little bit more if there was a bit more thematic structure. But it does fit the themes of the album well, which is sort of relationships, feeling special, knowing your specialness, and just being you. And I think it does that pretty solidly. Overall, it's probably my favourite Twigs, like, big project. I still think EP2 and Melissa are her best sort of, like, EPs, and I prefer them to any sort of full-scale projects he's done. But I do like this. It's a mixtape, so I know it's not going to quite be cohesive as an album, but I think Twigs did a good job here. And there's not that many tracks I don't like. I think there's like one on here. I just feel like there's a lot of tracks which are cool, but could quite easily be put in like other Twigs projects. So overall, I'll give this 7.5, which is apparently my favourite score, because that's what I gave another review. I've only done 2 reviews this year, so... But that's all, folks. Let me know what you think of this new FKA Twigs project, Capri Songs. And until next time, this has been another TomTalks.